Make no mistake, Nintendo Today is an absolutely brilliant and absolutely excellent idea. Basically, just to give you an idea of what the hell Nintendo Today is, it's basically a phone app where Nintendo is able to directly send news feeds directly to our phones through a singular smartphone app. So what makes Nintendo Today so goddamn great is the fact that Nintendo doesn't need to, keep making announcements. They don't need to keep making blog posts. If they need to do anything, they can just drop it on the app. It becomes immediately available to everyone, and because we have our phones with us at all times connected to the internet, pop-up notifications, whatever have you, we're going to see the news no matter what. So the thing is that they are directly injecting the Nintendo news into our phones, and it's great. Because I kind of wish other platforms would do this, like Xbox and PlayStation. The fact that no matter what is announced, it is all sent to us and we can just take it all in. In fact, a massive piece of news was actually, well, I say massive piece, I guess it just depends on how you define massive, but they actually were talking about, in the Nintendo Today app, the, what was it? Legend of Zelda movie. Which is a huge piece of news to bloody drop on that app. So apparently it's coming in 2027. But yeah, this was actually a piece of news that dropped with a release date. So that's actually quite interesting. So it's going to be 26 March 2027. Director is Wes Bell. Screenplay is Derek Connolly. And is going to be distributed by Sony Pictures, which is actually quite funny, considering that in the gaming space, Sony and Nintendo are rivals to some extent, albeit that Nintendo is absolutely running away with it. But regardless, that's a pretty big piece of news to drop on Nintendo Today. And above all else, after the 2nd of April, the app is going to start dropping news about the Switch 2, for example, and stuff like that. So news is going to be dropping daily, and so yeah, when you think about like how the news is being presented through the lens of like other places like your IGNs, your GameSpots, and stuff like that, people do go to those sites to get the news. People go and listen to podcasts on the internet to get their news. Hell, you might be watching this video for some reason and getting your news, but the thing is that Nintendo is directly injecting this stuff into our veins. That is basically what they're doing here, and I'm all for it. I actually like the idea, and I'm a huge fan of the idea of Nintendo Today, and wish that Sony and or rather PlayStation and Xbox would kind of do the same thing. So it's only going to be a matter of time before they do, but this actually dropped the same day as the Nintendo Direct that happened recently. So yeah, basically Nintendo Fun delivered daily, being an app that brings you daily updates from Nintendo based on what you like. So you can even just configure to pick very specific things. You don't need to get all the Nintendo stuff, you could just get some Nintendo stuff. I like the idea of the animated calendars as well. Like, that's a really neat, really cool idea. You've got Animal Crossing, Pikmin. I actually downloaded the app myself pretty much the moment it became available, so I very, very much like what they're doing with this whole app as a whole. So like it's mentioned, daily updates on like news and stuff like that. So, and again, keeping in mind the Switch 2 stuff only going to be happening after the Switch 2 Direct, which is coming up, and I do want to react to, but the problem is I'm kind of worried as to how long the Switch Direct is going to be, but I do definitely want to, kind of stand out from that. But yeah, they've also got, little interesting bits and pieces, like say for example, Who Is This? Which is pretty much a Nintendo version of, what's that Pokemon from the original Pokemon series and stuff like that. Bits and pieces of art from different games and things like that. The Zelda Orchestra is on there as well, to be able to listen to. Like, there's a lot of really cool stuff. But unlike, and keeping in mind, I don't know why they did this for the Nintendo Music app. So for Nintendo Music app, you do need to have a Switch Online subscription. For this app, you do not need that, and I love the fact that they had to specify the fact of it. Also, they have an event schedule, so similar to like, you know, anything upcoming, whether it be directs. Hopefully it's going to be oh yeah, no, they actually say it right here. Plan ahead for Nintendo Direct presentations, game releases, in-game events, and more with the schedule, which is a great idea. So here we have fishing tournament for Animal Crossing, and also a Splatfest for Splatoon on the 17th of March as an example. And then of course the customizability is as good as whatever IP that a company has, and to be completely honest, if there isn't any more beloved IP than what Nintendo holds, all things considered. And yeah, it's pretty much basically like these are all widgets to, you know, decorate your home screen, for example. So this is, like I said, all things considered, a great idea. Yes, customizability and some of the news initially is going to be quite limited, but I still think that this is an excellent idea to be able to actually proliferate important pieces of information directly to people rather than having to go through other news sources. Now, does this mean that those news sources are ultimately going to be suffering as a result of this? Yes, in a way, but the thing is that they kind of don't really add much to propagate the news. So if it can be done directly to our phones through something like this, which also, thinking about it now, we've had smartphones for quite some time. The fact that other companies have not been able to do this and Nintendo is the first to take that kind of step is amazing to see. Maybe there are other gaming companies that have apps that directly, you know, send the news to your phone, and you keep getting constant, like, you know, recommendations or pop-up messages and stuff like that. I mean, I know Hoyoverse is doing that with the HoYoLab app, for example, but I think more specifically it needs to be the console makers that it should be doing this, because like I said, this is just a great, excellent idea. While it kicks out the idea of needing media to, you know, give you news, instead all they'll do is reviews basically, the people in the YouTube space like myself can still talk about some information that is in here, because there does need to be some level of a human element to it. And when it comes to YouTube videos, you can listen and see, talk about, you know, whatever it is that I'm saying and stuff like that. So there is still some level of human element to the fact that I'm presenting whatever it is that I'm doing. That being said, however, I do want to know what you guys think about all of this in the comments below. I think that this is a fascinating idea, a great idea, and I think that PlayStation and Xbox should follow suit and do the same thing Nintendo did. But with all of that being said, however, you know, feel free to comment below, like the video if you liked it, subscribe to the channel. I'm aiming for 500 subs by the end of the year, and with all that being said, I do upload every day, so I'll see you guys tomorrow.